Mom, when do I get a dad I actually like? The microphone fed Chloe's small voice through the chandeliered ballroom as if the question belonged to the program. It didn't. The gala had just fallen quiet for the paddle raise, and now 100 glasses hovered mid-air the way birds pause before deciding to flee. On the stage, Madison Hale did not blink. Her dress was silver, her posture ironed flat by years of earnings calls and boardroom ambushes, but the question landed where armor ends behind the ribs. A few people laughed because they didn't know what else to do. Others pretended to check their phones. Someone whispered, "Is this a bit?" Madison stepped away from the podium and crouched to Chloe's height. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "you and I talk about big things at home." Chloe held the mic closer at 10, unafraid of acoustics or etiquette. "We do, but home doesn't listen like this room does." The ballroom inhaled as one. A man in a tux at table 7, an investor who'd once told Madison her company was too emotional for the market, leaned to his date. "This is why founders shouldn't bring kids," he hissed. Forgetting cameras loved that sentence. The MC fluttered back toward the podium, but Madison lifted a palm that said, "Not yet." She turned her face to the crowd, kept her voice even. "My daughter asked a brave question," she said, "and I'm not going to punish bravery." A murmur rolled across the donors like static. Chloe tugged Madison's sleeve. "You said love isn't a business plan, but you also said you hire people who fit our family. I want to help." Madison's laugh was small and real. "I did say that." She rose, took the mic, and her CEO voice came back measured clean. "Most of you know I was widowed when Chloe was 6. You also know grief doesn't end. It changes jobs. It stops knocking on the door and starts living in the pantry. Tonight, my 10-year-old asked me in front of all of you if she can help me choose who joins our family someday." A camera light flared. Another phone rose, apologetic. The MC whispered to a producer. The event planner mouthed, "Please land this plane." Madison kept going. "To be clear, Chloe is not hiring a father. I am not hosting auditions for my heart." She let them chuckle. "But I am listening to my daughter. And for the next 4 weeks, I'll be arranging a few honest, ordinary moments outside of ballrooms like this, moments where Chloe and I can meet good men in daylight, without glitter, without pressure, and see how we feel. She gets a voice. I keep the decision. That's what family is: voice and responsibility sharing the table." At table 2, a lawyer nodded despite himself. At the press row in the back, a journalist underlined the phrase, "voice and responsibility." Chloe leaned into the microphone one last time. "And there has to be ice cream," she said, "because you can tell everything about a person by how they order ice cream." The ballroom laughed. The tension exhaled. Madison pressed a kiss to Chloe's temple and stood again the script she'd prepared, now a paper airplane in a hurricane. "Now," she said, "let's raise money for homes that don't have to ask these questions in public." The paddle raise soared. People gave, because scandal makes generosity feel like wisdom. Madison did her part, smiled when appropriate, posed for photos with prominent donors. But when the speeches ended and music washed the room, she slipped to the edge of the balcony overlooking Midtown, the city glittering like a jewelry case no one can close. Chloe padded up beside her. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. Madison shook her head. "I'm proud of you. I didn't mean to interrupt. It felt like if I didn't say it, then I wouldn't say it at all. That's how truth behaves." Madison draped her shawl around Chloe's shoulders. "Truth needs a microphone or it loses its nerve." Chloe leaned into her side. "I miss him less when I think about what could be next." Madison swallowed. "Me too." She rested her chin on her daughter's hair and tried to remember when hope had stopped being a betrayal and started being an option. Behind them, the balcony door clicked. The MC's voice arrived first. "Press is organizing downstairs," he said gently. "We can decline, but they'll run with whatever angle they already wrote in their heads." Madison looked at Chloe. "One rule," she said. "No one learns anything about you that you don't want them to know. This is our story, not their buffet." Chloe squared her shoulders. "Got it." They descended into the camera garden. Questions flew like confetti with teeth. Ms. Hale, are you launching a dating show? Is this healthy for a child? Are you saying money can buy a family? Madison lifted a hand for quiet. I'm saying children deserve a say in the shape of their lives. I'm saying grief is real and love is careful. I'm saying the only format is decency. A reporter with sharp eyeliner raised her voice above the others. Criteria, Ms. Hale. If men are listening tonight, what should they know Madison considered? Kindness is non-negotiable, integrity under stress, humor that isn't a weapon, and a willingness to eat ice cream in winter. She smiled toward Chloe. We'll meet people like normal people do coffee parks, museums. No cameras, no influencers, no scorecards. What about money, someone called. Would you date below your tax bracket? Madison's smile cooled. What I won't date is arrogance. She took Chloe's hand. Good night. They were in the car when Chloe spoke again. You didn't look scared. I was terrified, Madison said. I just didn't let my face vote. Chloe laughed, the kind of laugh that sounds like a small gate swinging open. Can one of the places be the Science Museum? If a man can't wonder at a dinosaur, he can't wonder at me. Madison considered, then nodded. Add it to the list. At home, the penthouse smelled like lemon and paper. On the kitchen island, 2 calendars waited, one for quarterly closings, one for Chloe's piano recitals and orthodontist appointments. Madison poured tea she wouldn't finish and opened her laptop. The board would email by dawn. HR would worry about optics. Legal would send bullet points about privacy and minors. She would answer them all, but not yet. She drafted a note to herself instead. 4-week plan. Low-key meetings, daytime public spaces. No press. Background checks, yes. Chloe's input recorded privately. Therapy, check-in, Dr. Klein, biweekly. Ordinary moments over staged ones. Chloe floated in wearing pajamas with watercolor moons. Can I sleep in your room? You can start there, Madison said. And then I will carry you back because you are a human anvil. I'm not heavy, Chloe protested, climbing onto the bed with the shameless grace of children. She looked at the city beyond the glass. Will people be mean online? Some, Madison said. But they're typing at a screen, not standing in our kitchen. Kitchen rules matter more. What are kitchen rules? We use names, not labels. We talk to faces, not profiles. And we eat ice cream in winter. Chloe grinned. You heard that. New York Madison tucked the blanket up to her daughter's chin. Tomorrow we'll make the list, she said. Not just names. The qualities that matter. What if the best person doesn't look like the best person? Then we learn to look better, Madison said. Chloe's eyes drifted. Mom. Yes, if I ask a question in a room again, and your ribs make that face, will you still let me ask it? Madison brushed hair from Chloe's forehead. That's what our house is for. Questions that make ribs make faces. A text buzzed on the nightstand, her COO, a string of question marks, and one. Are you sure? Madison typed back. I'm sure of the why. We'll make the how responsible. She set the phone down and sat in the thin hush that follows decisions. Somewhere below, a siren wrote its red line across the avenue. The city kept its pulse. She felt hers match it. In the morning, headlines would decide what tonight meant. Investors would request context. Old friends would call it brave. Others would choose a different adjective. But between the 2 calendars under the lemon air and paper smell, Madison wrote the only sentence she trusted. Let's build a life that would be safe for love to enter. She switched off the lamp. In the dark, Chloe whispered into the quiet a prayer to no one in particular, just the room itself. Let him be kind. Madison stared at the ceiling and added silently, Let me be brave enough to recognize him when he looks nothing like what I imagined. On the street, a snow flurry began, late, impatient, and perfect for ice cream in winter. By sunrise, the headlines had cooled from scandal to speculation. Inside, Hale Development's glass-walled conference room speculation had a seat at the table. 5 prospects said Nora Patel Madison's COO, sliding a folder across the polished oak. all vetted. No liabilities, no tabloid landmines, and every one of them intersects with our pipeline in a legitimate way. Vetted for the business, Madison said, not for my kitchen table. That's why we stack the deck with daylight, Nora replied. Coffee shops, museums, zero champagne, 2 therapists on speed dial, and legal gave me language for informed consent if anyone so much as breathes near a camera. Dr. Klein, their family therapist, was on speaker. Remember the ground rules? Madison, you set boundaries. Chloe gives feelings and nobody performs. Wonder is allowed. Pressure is not. Chloe sat beside Madison, small sneakers swinging above the floor. Can we see dinosaurs before we see men? She asked. We can see both, Madison said. But no, letting either bite. Chloe grinned. Nora tapped the list. Option 1. Elliot Vance. 42, attorney specializing in land use. He's witty charming and allergic to shortcuts. He also teaches mock trial at a public school on Saturdays. Pro bono, on purpose, Dr. Klein murmured through the speaker. Good sign. 2. Dr. Marcus Bell, pediatric cardiologist. Empathy for a living. He's advising a wellness center that wants to partner on our Riverside project. Chloe tilted her head. A heart doctor seems like cheating. Sometimes a good cheat, Madison said. 3. Grant Whitlow, managing partner at Whitlow Capital. He's the numbers whisperer donors try to corner at galas. If money can do a backflip, Grant taught it. Translation, Chloe said. He's very good at math and very bad at cookies. Nora smothered a laugh. 4. Luis Calder, architect, who thinks buildings should be kind to the people inside them. He grew up in a 2-bedroom with 5 siblings and never forgot it. Kind buildings, Chloe repeated, tasting the phrase. Like chairs that don't bully backs. 5. Raphael Stone, second-generation hotelier. He runs properties like orchestras, quiet hands, perfect timing. He's offering long-term housing for our Veterans Initiative. Madison exhaled. They were all decent. She could speak with any of them without her face asking for a map. The fact that each touched her work wasn't a coincidence. It was a safeguard. Love wasn't a business plan, but proximity to purpose was a sane place to start. Okay, she said. Daylight it is. No headlines, no auditions. We meet people like people. Chloe raised a hand as if in class. And ice cream non-negotiable. They built a calendar that looked more like a field trip than a courtship. Coffee near the park with Elliot. A hospital tour 10 minutes tops with Dr. Bell. A public lecture on housing equity where Grant promised to listen without interrupting. A site walk with Luis, who preferred hard hats to hard sells. And lunch in a hotel lobby with Raphael where Chloe would rate the piano player's song choices. Madison sent careful invitations, real, respectful, specific. We're keeping this small, she wrote each man. No cameras. 2 humans and a child. If that sounds inconvenient, we're not a fit. By late morning, all 5 said yes. 2 days later, the first ordinary moment was a site walk, Block 17. A stretch of brick and promise where Hale Development planned a mixed-use complex ground-floor grocers, upper-floor apartments, a courtyard strung with lights that would feel like summer even in November. The frost still clung to scaffolding. Hard hats waited like white punctuation on a sawhorse. Rule 1. Luis said, handing Chloe a child-sized helmet with Heil stenciled on the side. You can ask any question. Bad questions don't exist on job sites. Chloe strapped the chin band. Okay. Why are pigeons always invited to construction? Luis nodded, solemn. Because they never sign NDAs. Chloe giggled. Madison clocked the gentle timing. Luis didn't perform. He included. They walked the perimeter, Luis explaining load paths the way you explain a secret to a friend softly. Chloe touched a column, eyes wide. So, this is bone, she said. It is, he said. The skin comes later. As they neared the freight elevator, a superintendent waved, then frowned at a beeping panel. She's been testy all morning, he said, thumbing the call button. We've got a maintenance check in 20. The gate rattled open. Madison hesitated. "We can take the stairs. Top deck is a better view," Luis said then to the superintendent. "You sure? 10 minutes tops?" He pried the door, listening the way mechanics listen to thunder. "You'll be fine." They weren't in for 10 seconds before the elevator sighed and stopped. The lights flickered. The car sighed again like a tired animal, then stilled between floors. Chloe's fingers clenched Madison's coat. The small space curled in. "It's okay," Madison said, heart slamming like it wanted out. "We're okay." Luis pressed the emergency call. Elevator car 2 stalled between 3 and 4, he told whoever was there. "Passengers inside, no injuries." "Calm." Copy a calm voice replied. "Maintenance on the way." Chloe's breath shortened. "I can't feel the edges," she whispered. Madison lowered to eye level, aware of her own pulse painting her neck. "Look at me. Count my freckles," she said, trying for light. "I earned them in boardrooms without windows." Chloe counted, then shook her head. "The air is sticky." A knuckle rapped the outer door. "Hey there," a man called through the metal. "Name's Daniel. I'm here with maintenance. You're safe." The name slid into the car like a leveler. Madison didn't know why it fit. "Who's in there?" he asked. 3, Luis called back. 1 child. "Okay, 3, Daniel said. "Tell me a number between 1 and 10. 7, Chloe whispered. "7's my lucky number too," Daniel said. 7 means we breathe like we're blowing out birthday candles. In through the nose for 4, out through the mouth for 6. "Can you help me practice?" Madison felt Chloe's grip loosen just a little. "Good," Daniel said. "Now I've got a secret. This box is a liar. It tells your brain the sky is gone, but the sky didn't leave your brain, just forgot where the door is. So we remind it. We breathe. We name 5 things we can touch." Chloe pressed her palm to the cool metal. "Metal," she said, shaky but trying. "Hard hat, Mom's sleeve, my own hand. Mr. Luis's elbow." "Excellent," Daniel said. "Now, 4 things you can hear." "The hum," Chloe said. "Your voice." "Mom's heartbeat." "Wait really fast." "We don't judge heartbeats around here," Daniel said through a small laugh that didn't minimize. "And my breath," she finished. "Perfect," he said. "Help is opening the door. You won't drop. Elevators are stubborn, not cruel." There was a clank. A grunt, the measured code of professionals versus machinery. The gate inched. Light cut a bright stripe across the floor. A crowbar bit metal, complained, and then the door slid wide enough to see a man's face, late 30s hair damp with effort, eyes careful. He wore a blue work shirt with hail stitched above the pocket and a tool belt that read like a sentence about reliability. "Hello," he said, not reaching in yet. "I'm going to get you out to the Safeway. We take it slow because slow is smart." Madison nodded relief like warmth in her knees. She lifted Chloe toward the opening. Daniel braced, not grabbing, letting Chloe choose the contact. She reached. He anchored her weight with the sort of strength that never asks you to apologize for needing it. When Chloe landed on the hallway floor, she didn't step back. She looked up at him. "You used a nice voice," she said. "I saved the mean one for broken vacuum cleaners," he said. "It's less effective on people." Luis climbed out. Madison followed Palm's stung pride intact but rearranged. She turned to Daniel. "Thank you," she said, the 2 words heavier than etiquette. He made a small shrug. "I got stuck in one when I was 8. My mom talked me out. I just borrowed her voice." Chloe considered him, then held out a hand solemn. "I'm Chloe," she said, "and for the record, 7 is my lucky number first." He shook with equal solemnity. "Daniel," he said. "I'm fine with borrowing luck, too." The superintendent bustled over with apologies, radio crackling. "She's offline till we swap the relay," he said. "Hale will comp your shoes if we scuffed them." Luis waved it away. "We're fine." Madison wanted to say something that matched the magnitude of feeling in her ribcage. Something about how leadership is exactly what Daniel had done. Gather panic, give it a job, turn it into breath, but she kept to the simple road. "Were you on your way to us?" she asked. "Or did you just appear?" "On my way to the roof," he said, half smiling. The heater likes dramatic gestures in February. Chloe looked at his tool belt. Do you fix everything? I try not to break it worse, he said. That's half the job. Madison met his eyes for a second longer than strangers usually do. There was nothing heroic about him except the exact kind of hero she'd promised herself to notice, steady, unfancy, unafraid of small rooms. Thank you, Daniel, she said again. Any time he said and meant it in the technical sense, not the poetic. As they walked back toward the stairwell, Chloe slipped her hand into Madison's. Is he on the list? She whispered. The list is for meetings, Madison whispered back. He just saved us in real life. Sometimes real life is the meeting, Chloe said. Madison smiled without showing teeth. Sometimes, she said. Behind them, Daniel knelt by the panel speaking low to the superintendent about relays and fail-safes, the kind of language that keeps buildings honest. He didn't look up again. He didn't have to. He'd already said the truest line in the hallway. We take it slow because slow is smart. That night, Madison added a new line to the calendar no one else saw. Ordinary moments note who gets smaller so a child can breathe. The next Monday, Madison walked into the headquarters lobby with the intent to keep her eyes forward, her schedule tight, and her pulse steady. But there, kneeling beside a tool cart under the Bronze Hale Development logo, was the janitor from the elevator, Daniel Brooks. He was tightening a panel on the baseboard sleeves rolled to his elbows, a pencil tucked behind one ear. The same calm energy he'd carried in the cramped elevator seemed to travel with him like a quiet song only he could hear. Chloe spotted him first. It's the 7 guy, she whispered, tugging Madison's coat. Daniel glanced up, recognized them, and stood. Morning, he said simply, wiping his hands on a rag. Madison nodded, feeling an unexpected warmth at his steady gaze. Thank you again. For the other day, he shook his head lightly. That's what I'm here for, making stuck things move again. Before Madison could reply, Chloe chimed in, We're going to my mom's office. Want to come? I don't think they let janitors crash CEO meetings, he said with a half smile. Maybe they should, Chloe answered without missing a beat. Madison caught Daniel's faint smirk, the kind that says a child just told the most accurate truth in the room. Later that morning, Madison's corner office felt too high above the street. She was in a meeting about the Riverton redevelopment deal, a flagship project on the verge of collapse over engineering issues the contractors couldn't solve. Madison, were weeks behind her project manager Paul said, spreading blueprints across the glass table. If we can't reroute the substructure supports, we lose the retail anchor. The city won't approve the revised permits without a new load plan. The structural engineer on the call shook his head. We'd need a redesign from scratch. That's 6 figures and 3 months minimum. Madison tapped a pen against the blueprints, her jaw tightening. Losing Riverton wasn't just numbers, it was housing for hundreds of families, the centerpiece of her next year's portfolio and leverage for 2 philanthropic partnerships. A knock at the door interrupted. Daniel stepped in holding a small envelope. Sorry, he said. Mailroom sent this up. Looks important. He placed the envelope on her desk, but his eyes flicked to the plans. Is that Riverton? He asked almost casually. Paul frowned. Confidential. Madison hesitated. It is. Why? Daniel glanced at the cross-section. You've got a load transfer bottleneck here, he said, pointing to the north column grid. If you swap to staggered micropiles and a stepped footing, you can carry the same load without relocating utilities. Cuts install time by 2/3. Paul blinked. That's not bad. Daniel straightened. Worked on something similar in Boston back when I was wearing a different shirt. What shirt was that? Madison asked. Project manager. Civil engineering. Before a bad lawsuit and a worse friend taught me humility, he said without bitterness. Now I mop floors and fix elevators, but the math still works. The conference line was silent for a beat, the engineer on the other end finally muttering, That could actually solve it. Paul was already scribbling notes. We'd need the calculations. Daniel shrugged. I can run them tonight if you want. No charge. Consider it a professional itch. Madison studied him, not the coveralls or the utility belt, but the unhurried certainty in his voice. Run them, she said. That evening, her inbox pinged at 9:17 p.m. The subject line read, "Riverton Load Transfer Preliminary." Attached was a PDF clean. Diagrams, precise formulas, annotated sketches. It was the kind of work you paid high-end consultants for, but with a clarity that spoke of field experience, not just theory. Beneath the calculations, a note. Madison, no guarantees. But this is the path I'd bet my own roof on. Daniel. 2 days later, Madison presented the adjusted plan to the City Review Board. They approved it on the spot. The Riverton deal was back in motion. When the news hit her desk, she didn't call Daniel to her office. She went to find him. She caught him in the sub-basement, checking a water line. "Riverton's approved," she said. He glanced up, one eyebrow lifting. "Good. That's one less building holding its breath. You just saved us millions," she said. He shook his head. "I just hated seeing a good project die of paperwork." Madison folded her arms. "Why didn't you ever go back to engineering?" Daniel leaned against the pipe he'd been tightening. "Because life isn't always linear. I had a son to raise, a legal mess to climb out of, and no appetite for partners who cut corners. Janitorial work is honest. No one lies to you about where the dirt is." There was a pause, the hum of the building around them. "You're wasted down here," Madison said. Daniel smiled faintly. "No. I'm just not where most people expect to find me." Before she could respond, Chloe's voice echoed from the stairwell. "Mom." Mr. Daniel Chloe appeared, clutching a sketch pad. "I drew the elevator we got stuck in, and a better one." Want to see Daniel crouched to look. "Nice. You gave it windows." "Everything feels safer with a view," Chloe said matter-of-factly. Madison saw the way Daniel looked at her daughter, not indulgent, not condescending, but as if her opinion was already worth listening to. It made something in her chest shift. That night, Madison sat at her kitchen counter, a mug of tea, cooling beside her laptop. She pulled up Daniel's email again, reading the note at the bottom. "The path I'd bet my own roof on." She thought of Chloe's sketch. She thought of Riverton's tenants who would have homes because a man in coveralls remembered how to read blueprints. And she thought, not for the first time, that some people were exactly where they needed to be, not because of the title on their shirt, but because of what they carried quietly until the right moment. Somewhere in the city, Daniel was probably tucking his son into bed. Madison closed the laptop and whispered into the empty room. "I see you, Brooks. Even if no one else does yet." And for the first time in weeks, the future felt less like a negotiation and more like a possibility. The rooftop bar of the Fairmont shimmered with glass and chrome, the kind of place where success came with a garnish. Madison's 5 candidates stood in a loose arc near the terrace rail, laughing in that practiced way that carried just enough to be overheard. She was late on purpose. Part of her wanted to see how they behaved when she wasn't in earshot. Chloe sat in the corner with her art supplies, sketching the skyline. Daniel, naturally, was nowhere on the guest list. This was meant to be an informal mixer, a chance to see the men interact, not a rescue mission. Still, Madison caught fragments of conversation that made her jaw tighten. "You can't tell me she's serious about giving the kid that much say," Grant Whitlow muttered, sipping his whiskey. "It's optics," Raphael replied. "The press loves a modern fairy tale, but a janitor. That's a headline you can't scrub." Luis Calder chuckled under his breath. "I heard he helped save Riverton. Probably thinks that buys him a seat at the table." Elliot Vance adjusted his cufflinks. "Saving a project doesn't mean you belong in the boardroom or the family. Those are different leagues." They didn't notice Madison had moved within earshot until Chloe's pencil stopped. The girl looked up, her voice clear and young, but unshakable. "Mr. Daniel fixes things people like you don't even see are broken." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Madison stepped in before anyone could recover. "Chloe, why don't you grab a soda from the bar?" she said gently. When Chloe was out of range, Madison turned to the men. "You're here because I believed each of you had the self-awareness to know this isn't just about me. If you can't respect the people my daughter respects, you've already lost." Elliot's jaw tightened. "We were just— I know exactly what you were— just—" Madison cut in. And for the record, Riverton's tenants will never know the difference between a boardroom league and a broom closet league. They'll just be grateful to have walls that stand. The air cooled. Madison walked away before the conversation could limp into apology. Downstairs in the lobby, she found Chloe in front of the fountain stirring ice in her soda with a straw. "They don't like him," Chloe said. It wasn't a question.